Hey everyone, welcome to this session of DEMOFEST. We'll be doing a case study of scaling pre-sales with intelligent demo automation, given by Brian Oehling. He's the Senior Director of Digital Transformation at SAP Concur. DEMOFEST is hosted by Consensus. We help pre-sales teams to scale with intelligent demo automation. Just to note, we're going to be recording this session, and we'll be posting the links to the recordings for this session and all other sessions in the Scaling Pre-Sales and Sales Engineering LinkedIn group. I'll be posting a link within the Zoom chat for you to join that group. And all these sessions will be posted in a couple of weeks. So we'd encourage you to go in and join that group. During the session, if you have any questions, we'll be having a brief Q&A for the last 10 minutes. And if you want to have Brian answer any of your questions, just post those in the little Q&A section down there at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Before we get started here, give a little background on Brian. So Brian is a progressive, Brian and his progressive selling motion team of digital consultants focus with sales and pre-sales to accelerate deals and increase engagement in the sales funnel by leveraging and rolling out new digital tools, creating fresh and relevant customer-facing content, and enabling scale within our existing selling process. He leads a sales, pre-sales digital transformation initiative, and investment in his progressive selling motion team are a critical part of SAP Concur's strategy to rapidly increase scale and growth in the business in 2020 and beyond. Brian brings over 20 years of innovation experience and leadership to his role by leveraging his 15 years in pre-sales, leading numerous high-performance pre-sales teams across several enterprise and small to medium-sized organizations. His passion for digital transformation, buyer enablement, sales, pre-sales, his customers, and the professional development of his team to drive real customer value are what drives him daily. Let's see some digital claps in the chat and introduce Brian.
Thanks, Miles. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, let's get the video on and I'll go ahead and share my screen then, get started. All right. Are you seeing my screen?
Yep, looks good.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks, Miles, for the introduction, and thanks to Garen and company for inviting me to speak at DEMOFEST to all of your customers. It's an honor. And before I get started, I want to give a big shout out to two gurus in pre-sales, John Kerr and Peter Cohen. There are a lot of amazing panelists that Garen and company have brought to all of us, but those two, I had a lot of success in my pre-sales career because of those two. So shout out to both of you. Glad to see you here and be speaking with you at this DEMOFEST conference here. And I wanted to also highlight that what Garen was saying in the keynote yesterday kind of struck a chord with me. I'm very proud and excited to be part of this pre-sales profession, as many of you are. And to see Garen and the company pull out some solutions to help us in our profession really does show the maturity of what we're all doing as a career and how I've been very fortunate and excited to build a career over the past 15 years in pre-sales. So with that, today I'm going to take some of that experience, some of my lessons learned, as well as my teammates and my colleagues, and walk you through a case study of how we've scaled pre-sales by implementing intelligent demo automation. All right, so let's get to the next slide here. So as I was preparing for this conversation, I decided to go back and think about the crisis that we're in with the pandemic and the economic crisis that is quickly following that. And I was wanting to learn from history to see how others during the Great Depression or even during other pandemics like in 1918 during the Spanish flu, how our previous leaders out there were driving sales still through some really difficult times. And so if you go over 100 years in the past, if you look at the Spanish flu and try to see if there's something that's relevant today, Grant Noblo back in that time decided to build science into selling. And So we looked at that, and what Grant Nablo means by phrenology is it's really determining a person's propensity to buy based on the size of their forehead. This is no joke. The larger the forehead, the more persuasive that individual might be. And so you'll see that Rex Galbraith, our sales rep here at Consensus that we deal with, sold me a lot of Consensus licenses because I have a pretty large forehead. So we decided that was not an approach that we wanted to lean on to drive innovation and change even through these difficult times of a pandemic. And so in 2020, really what we've done is doubled down and focused for COVID-19 and even before that on digital transformation, the digital transformation really of pre-sales. So phrenology, wouldn't recommend it. Digital transformation, I would. So today I'm going to talk to you about really three key areas in my agenda. I want to help share some strategies that we've learned along the way and have applied to help us deliver the success that we've had. I also want to walk you through 4 phases of our process that we went through as we went through this digital transformation pre-sales. And finally, along those phases, the process we went through, I want to share some best practices that you can walk away today with to hopefully apply in your engagement and your initiative as you go out and do this for your customers and your sellers. So a couple of weeks ago, my manager, Megan Noel here, shared with myself and my peers a model around change management. And this model came from a blog, shmula.com, shmula.com, I believe. Check it out. And it's a great model to help you understand how digital transformation that we're initiating here with intelligent demo automation and a digital pre-sales program, it's really a change management initiative. And digital transformation is a radical rethinking. It's not new, it's been out there, but it's a radical rethinking of how a business takes people, process, and technology and applies that to deliver a better customer experience. The customer is at the heart of that. And only 84%, only 16% of digital transformation initiatives succeed because they're so complicated and so cross-functional. And so by leveraging this change management program and being very intentional about it, we have had a lot of success. And this model really struck a chord with me, so I'm sharing it with you. And I'll walk you through what we went through in terms of this change management. So the first stage is really around being unaware. You'll have this idea, this vision to transform pre-sales into a digital model. And you'll start to communicate out there and people start to maybe understand what the impact on the status quo might be. Then you'll move into this state of awareness. And one of the leaders that I worked with here at SAP Concur shared with me that I should probably have a walking deck. So I took my vision, wrapped it into a PowerPoint, got some feedback from some peers that I trusted, and started to walk the organization and describe the change and got a lot of active questioning and people starting to get aware of what we were trying to do with this when we started this initiative about 3 years ago. Had a lot of saboteurs, people that didn't want to change. As I think Kevin O'Brien mentioned yesterday, sales and pre-sales are the worst people to change, although we sell change all day long. And so a lot of people just don't want to change. They want to stay the course, sales and pre-sales combined. But then we started to move into a stage of understanding through our initiative here. And that's where we started to see more than myself and my partners that were driving this change. We started to see people speak positively about it. Some of the results that we were getting with the solutions we're leveraging to deliver digital pre-sales was getting some great results. And we still had some fence sitters out there who weren't totally committed. But then we started to see really a belief. And that's when we decided to take this digital pre-sales initiative and focus it around digital transformation and some of those best practices, if you study that out there, that need to be applied in a very cross-functional effort, all for the sake of the customer. And that's when we began to really get accelerated adoption and drive and get a full commitment from the business. And then finally, we got to the point where the change is operational, and that's where we're at now from inaction. So this just change management model is maybe something you should think about and be very intentional and proactive about driving towards this as you develop your strategy and your plan. Doing so will help alleviate some of the roadblocks and the issues we ran into without having this wisdom when we started. And as you scale pre-sales, you have different organizational models out there, whether you're a small business or whether you're driving large enterprise complex sales. These types of organizational models are probably true to your organization. You'll either have an inside sales program. You might have a hybrid program where you do a little bit of inside sales and some face-to-face selling. like we have here at SAP Concur, or you might have a complete field sales based on the technology or the solution you're delivering. And the scale that you're trying to achieve in pre-sales really will help you determine how you change and modify the different selling motions that exist out there. And for all those organizational models, there really are only about 3 selling motions. And until about 3 years ago, when we started our efforts, you had face-to-face selling, which people have been doing all the way back to the cavemen and cavewomen out there. You have virtual selling, which through the dawn of the internet and web conferencing, and frankly, what we're all doing now is Zoom all day long as we are here. That's more of a virtual selling best practice. And that's where we stopped as a business. But moving into 2019 and 20, we realized that we really had to innovate and meet our buyers where they were. And so we focused on digital selling. All of this to say, the goal of doing this is you focus on digital and drive that more into your virtual selling, and virtual selling more into your face-to-face, which the pandemic has created a compelling event for. We're all doing virtual selling. I think that will forever change us. But the more you lean on digital, the more scale, the better customer experience you'll get 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as we looked at scale for us, you have to determine what is the problem or objective that you're trying to go after, the problem you're trying to solve. And for us, it was scale, which is a buzzword. It's a little bit easy to understand, do more with less, create exponential value, like how do we do that? But we learned that we had to be very direct around what scale meant. And so we created this formula in terms of helping us think about it. And scale really is 2 key components with a compounding or an exponential factor. And so you have to think about SA, that seller adoption, your sales partners out there, and whether or not they're going to believe in this tool, your content, and whether or not it's going to deliver value. The buyer engagement is the other critical piece. And Garen talks a lot about in the industry around buyer enablement. And that's at the heart and the lifeblood of digital transformation, is this buyer enablement concept. But when you take scale and wrap those 2 components, add them together, and you leverage it by putting together intelligent demo automation solutions like Consensus around that, that is where you get that exponential value and really drive towards that scale that for us was a critical goal. As we move forward here, one key resource that you might want to take a note of is actually going back to my shout outs, Mastering Technical Sales with John Kerr or The Great Demo by Peter Cohen. Fantastic books. You should read those. In addition to that, you should look at a book from Dan Conaway and Robert Riestall here from 2 and Global. And this really is a Bible for digital pre-sales. And in this, they really can help you understand how to build out this digital pre-sales program you're working towards by leveraging solutions like Consensus. 3 main points there are that it really helps you provide an amazing customer experience through this digital pre-sales initiative. And what they talk about is the customer sales cycles are shrinking. And if you've studied Challenger or other sales methodologies out there, they will tell you that 60%, almost 60% of that sales process is done before ever they meet with you as an SC or solutions consultant or as a sales rep. So either your competitors are out there providing buyer enablement content through solutions like Consensus, or you're going to do that. And lastly, our attention spans and our expectations have increased. And so we want a demo now. We don't want to wait weeks, months to get that demo. And digital is a great way in this book of Rule of 24 that they can show you, walk you through how to do that. So now that we've looked at the strategies and some themes and thoughts that you might think about as you prepare your own program, I want to share with you our story. And so it was one small step for sales and pre-sales. More importantly, it was a massive leap for our customers, meeting them wherever they were on their tablets and their smartphones 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if I look at our process that we've completed over the past 4 years now, it really is around 4 phases. We ran a pilot, then we launched this with some very intentional activities. We felt like we really landed, and then we kind of have a base now that we're now building and expanding on. So I'll highlight some of what we learned in each of those stages and then drill down deeper in the following slides around some of the best practices for each of those. So in phase 1, when we launched this, we decided to pilot out a couple of different video distribution platforms out there, and to really do that by taking about 5 videos that allowed us to take our face-to-face and our virtual selling subject matter expertise and digitize that. We didn't have the skills internally, and so we worked with an external firm to train us on how to produce that content with the intent to eventually do that going forward ourselves. And the point from this phase that I want you to learn about is content architecture. We took a couple of principal consultants in our organization, the top solution consultants in our career path, and asked them to dissect our intelligent spend management solution into small bite-sized chunks of content, 2 to 3 minutes in length, and then take our demo and build out a library of how we might produce content to get that full breadth and depth of value that we deliver face-to-face or virtually. And so we sat down and architected a strategy around what content we needed. And then in phase 2, where we began to choose a tool and we had about 10 videos, so we doubled that, producing the rest, those other 5 ourselves, and delivered that through a shared model. And so rather than hire producers and train them up on our software, we built a production skill within our solutions consultants community. And that phase was exciting for us because that was when, with just 10 videos, we were able to deliver 1,000 digital demos in a month to our market. And so that was a big milestone for us. And that's where we really went through that change management where we started to see people go into understanding into more of a belief stage, if you will. Phase 3, where we landed, was when we brought our library up to 60 videos. That wasn't us as a solutions consulting organization producing all of those. We did add to that library, but now we realized we needed to work with marketing and product marketing. As digital transformation will state, you need to work with other cross-functional stakeholders out there, all the way from the lead management process or market development process, all the way over to your retention. And where we're focused is in the middle, the sales funnel. But if you work with those cross-functional partners, you can bring in content and deliver a larger library of value exponentially pretty quickly. But our library is getting bigger and more challenging for our sales reps and our solutions consultants to easily find content. So we realized we really needed to create some sort of tagging and naming conventions out there for our content so that I, as a sales rep, when we're going out there to deliver an interactive demo, pre-discovery or maybe pre-demo, I can easily find that content. And so having a tagging formula is pretty important, and I'll talk about that in detail later. And then finally, in phase 4, where we are now in accelerating is really kind of this base, and we're focused on performance and continuous improvement. So our library has now grown to 200 videos that we have in a central repository. 40 of those videos we've taken and put them into interactive demos, about 20 interactive demos. And last part of phase 3 for us and into phase 4, when you get a library that big and you're getting the type of scale that we're seeing, that's when we decided to double down and have dedicated resources. And so we took solutions consultants and trained them up on production rather than hire production resources and then train them up on our expertise, which is much more difficult to do. And so our organization, when you look at these phases, we can deliver roughly about 28,000 demos in a year with our pre-sales capacity. And when you take digital and add that to it, we'll extend that by 100%. So the digital demo capacity that we can reach in terms of our market, which is highly competitive, is now another 100% greater because of what we're doing in these 4 phases. So now let's go a little bit deeper into each of the processes here. Let me share some best practices. So phase 1, when we were piloting this, content was a key piece, as I talked about. And the framework here that Consensus offers, I think John or Garen delivered this, maybe Q1 is when I came across this. Alex Edwards, our client success manager, shared this with us. But this content strategy and having a framework like this will really help you be more efficient and more effective as you determine what needs to be produced. And it really is kind of the end game. We did not have this intelligence when we started, but we definitely have applied it and put our own lessons learned into this. And we've validated a lot of our experience with the statistics that they've seen here. And the key is to leverage a framework, bring those assets into a single repository so you can continue to see what works or doesn't work. Try to avoid the video asset or content sprawl that is constant in every single organization. And then also make sure that as you're going through this framework, you see vision as maybe top of the funnel, your marketing content that you might pull in for your explainer or awareness type of detail. Going further down in your sales stages, you'll see that content should be targeted for the sales stage that you need to deliver that interactive demo or that asset in. And when you get down to technical, you'll see that the deeper you go in the sales funnel, the longer your engagement will be on a video asset in an automatic or an interactive demo. And so for us, we absolutely have found that 2 of the top 5 producing videos in our library are live demos that we recorded, which is kind of an oxymoron, live demo recording. But those 2 are about 20 minutes in length and they're the top producing assets in our library. And that's because our sales reps and our solutions consultants are delivering that right around the demo stage. And so length is something that you should decide as a pre-sales organization, not the sales rep, because the sales rep will always want a 30-second demo. But your experience and wisdom on how you architect your library can be very thoughtful and more efficient with the buyer enablement and engagement you'll have with a solution like this. And some of the KPIs that we've delivered over the 20 interactive demos that we have here with roughly our 40 videos wrapped into that choose your own adventure, we have found that 1 in 4 buyers engage in our content. And of those buyers that engage in our content, about 1 in 3 are new stakeholders we didn't know about in our political maps within our deals, new business decision makers, new influencers. And so we've had that real world result. And then lastly, 2 to 3 videos that our buyers, engage in about 2 to 3 videos in the content we've built into these interactive demos. That's roughly 9 minutes of engagement. And so for us, the sweet spot in our sales process is right around the discovery, the demo, maybe a micro or a qualification discovery here is where we're seeing our buyers engage in a lot more video content because they feel like they're in control to choose what adventure is most important to them. Moving into phase 2, as we look at where we really launched, now that we knew what to develop in terms of content, we focused on how to do that. If you're producing a Hollywood movie, if you're delivering a 3-minute software demonstration, the process is the same. You go through a pre-production, a production, and a post-production concept. And we developed this early on, and it really helped us with the shared model we had originally, and then moving to a dedicated team to deliver these digital pre-sales assets. It really helped us to be effective and more productive and deliver more with a very tight, constrained resource. As Kevin, I think, mentioned, death, taxes, and pre-sales constraints are the constants in life. And we definitely felt that as we were trying to leverage subject matter expertise and take them out of the field from delivering revenue. And so this process will help you be very effective and productive with solutions consultants, subject matter expertise. But in pre-production, think about taking your demo flow that you have and driving that into 2 or 3 minute little win themes, value vignettes, differentiators, value statements that you deliver, leveraging that methodology that Peter Cohen or John or 2 Global offers out there or others. Make sure you have a strategy and script out what story you want to tell in that 2 to 3 minute little video you might be targeting. Grab your assets. Make sure you grab JPEGs, grab your screen flows, grab some stories out there, feedback from real customers that you want to build into that script to tell in a video format. And then production is where you're out there pulling it all together. We use Camtasia as a tool, and Camtasia allows us to create a branded experience. So we have some consistency and some higher production value as we produce those assets. And then we pull it all together in that video editing timeline. And Camtasia is a pretty easy tool to learn if you want to do this internally yourself. And then finally here, the last stage, production, is where you take your solutions consultants and you author those interactive demos. You pull from your library now that you've begun to produce it and author them in some intelligent flows that you want your buyers to engage in to choose their own adventure. And then drive and publish, make it aware to your sales team and to your peers out there in pre-sales. Let them know that this content is out there and where it should be used and what are the use cases it was intended to deliver on. But with this launch, we also learned from a production strategy, you also need to think about some best practices over on the left-hand side. From a prioritization strategy, you're not going to produce videos for every single piece of subject matter expertise you deliver out there, but you have to determine how you're going to prioritize what content to produce based on the strategy you delivered in phase one. And so repetitive conversations out there that you have all the time are a great conversation. They're great conversations to digitize and to put into a video format. By doing that and delivering it before your discovery or before your software demonstration is going to allow you as a pre-sales organization to be much more strategic and much more engaging further along in that process of helping your buyer understand how your software can be effective for them, how to drive value. So repetitive conversations is a way to go and alleviate those, making you deliver face-to-face virtually conversations that are more strategic and complicated to have. Another are roadblocks in your sales funnel. I call them competitive landmines. You might call them company cow pies. Many of you will know those cliches I use out there. Competitive landmine is if your competitors out there meeting with your buyer also, and they're dropping those landmines knowing that you're going to have to answer those, and it'll put you in a defensive mode. As a company cow pie, you know you have some weaknesses. Not all of us are strong in everything we do, and you don't want to step in those. But if you digitize those messages, you will control the narrative, get them out in the market, and be able to really drive that buyer experience. And so that's another strategy you can use to prioritize. External or internal on this stage, we decided that with 5 videos, we're going to go external. But after that, to deliver roughly the other 50 videos we had architected in the beginning, we decided to go, that wasn't going to be cost effective. So we built that internal skill set using career pathing as a way to find our solutions consultants out there who were digital natives and multipliers and wanted to move to that next level. And so we built out a digital pre-sales production skill. And those skills really are wrapped around project management. How do I take those videos that we've architected in terms of a strategy and produce them through this process? You got to have somebody drive the cross-functional resources in your organization through that. And you'll have production, video editing skills. You'll have curation, knowing how to go and tag and build these into intelligent demos that Consensus offers us to do. And then really use the analytics to diagnose what's working and not. Phase 3 really was where we got smarter about this library that was growing. This is where we roughly ran into 60 videos, and curating the library is really important. It's where we felt like we really landed. And if you remember going through the change management stage, as I talked about, it was that belief stage. And we still had some pockets of fence sitters out there, a couple saboteurs, but some fence sitters out there that we needed to help. And so really brought the configuration of the platform in alignment with our sales adoption and our reporting staff strategies. And so we knew that as we were going out to enable the sales force, we were going to ask them for a call to action and make sure that they delivered muscle memory by delivering at least 5 demos out of every single training session that they had. And the configuration we did in this system aligned to our organizational hierarchy so that my team could go and deliver to sales leaders and to pre-sales leaders how their team was doing. Again, identifying those saboteurs, those fence sitters, and then the fully committed throughout the organization. But the exciting really story out of the curation stage here in our landing we had was an interactive demo we created cross-functionally. So for our sales kickoff this year, we had a new go-to-market strategy. And so we used Consensus to drive that top of the funnel conversation. And these demolytics right here are a great example for us to share with be quiet, Siri. Is a great example for us to share with you how we have delivered value. And so marketing, product marketing, sales, and pre-sales work to deliver this. And since we launched this in roughly February timeframe to March to some of our segments, I think it says here we've got about 100 different views on this, delivering nearly 4 hours of additional scale and about 2 minutes. So if you go back to that content framework that Consensus shared, that's kind of in the vision stage there. More importantly, these demolytics can tell you what's working with this go-to-market strategy. In this market and in these times within total spend management, our intelligent spend management solution, our buyers out there are interested in increasing efficiency. So this is a real diagram of helping us now go back and drive campaigns and additional awareness. So some of the 3 best practices out there that I wanted to share with you come down to production style through this library. So as you build this library and start to curate it, you have two options really. You have variety as the spice of life, or you have consistency, where every single format or every video is delivered in a similar format. We decided to land on variety as the spice of life, with a very intention and strategy in the beginning to have our videos pulled together in a playlist. And so we felt if we had every single video with a similar format and a framework, that it might kind of get boring after a while and we might lose engagement, because that's what we're buying, or that's what we're challenged with, is keeping that mind share by telling our stories. And so we decided to have variety using whiteboarding. I know John was talking about whiteboarding yesterday. There's a tool out there called VideoScribe that allows you to capture some of those whiteboarding techniques and deliver it into a video format. So variety or consistency is something you'll have to determine in terms of a production style. Tagging and metadata. We use sales stage, the product, the segment, and the market in our naming conventions of our assets, so our sales reps can go out there and easily find content. They spend a lot of time looking for content instead of talking to our customers, our buyers out there. And if you tag them, you'll have a much better process for understanding where to accelerate your digital pre-sales assets and where you need to pull back because they're not delivering value, and tagging will help you identify that. And lastly, demolytics and analytics. Use this as a way to measure, are you delivering on scale or reach or engagement determined by the problem you're trying to solve with this digital pre-sales initiative. And the demolytics are second to none out in the industry, which is why we landed on intelligent demo automation through Consensus to deliver our scale. And then the last phase, as we're getting close to wrap up here in this session, this case study, Phase 4 is really where we were in that ACT stage, where we made the change operational as a digital transformation initiative across our executive team. And if you go back and also look at some of my consulting experience out the industry, capability maturity modeling was a process and a methodology to deliver software solutions. I think it was produced by the Software Engineering Institute for the Department of Defense quite a while ago. But that capability maturity modeling allows you to take and study people, process, and technology, which we're doing with Consensus, with our sales, and with a selling motion that I talked about earlier. It allows you to really think about, you have to start somewhere with this type of change and work through levels of maturity within that process. And so this helped us, this concept of capability maturity modeling with digital pre-sales, to answer the question of what do you expect from sales and what do we expect from pre-sales as we walk them through this change together for the benefit of our customers and our buyers. And so over on the right-hand side with pre-sales, you got to know what content is needed and what exists out there to reduce duplication of effort, and solutions consultants creating duplicate demos out there. As an example, you want to avoid that. But then you help them move from the next level. Now I know what's needed out there to using that prioritization strategy. Now I'm going to go and have them help me produce that or work with external vendors to do that. And then finally contribute to the library, adding that exponential value and reach and scale that you're looking to achieve. From a seller standpoint, it's that seller adoption, right? Are they using this? And more importantly, if you move that next level, where are they using it? Sales reps and pre-sales solutions consultants are great at determining new use cases that you may not have thought of. Listen, collect feedback, and learn how they're using your software. And then finally, effectiveness. Where is it working? Study those that are giving you feedback as a saboteur, or those that are giving you feedback that this is making their way to club really easy. Study the effectiveness on that. And from a best practice standpoint, if you go through this type of maturity model in your process, start baby steps and then begin to walk and then run and sprint. Focus and be very intentional about driving seller adoption and partnering with your sales enablement organization so that you can have them help you drive this initiative and change throughout your distribution team. Study your buyer behavior. The demolytics and Consensus, as I mentioned, were great. And by looking at when our buyers were engaging in our interactive demos, we learned that Wednesdays and Saturdays were the 2 days where our content was being consumed the most. And the important fact about that we use to train sellers on is that on Friday before you go out, go ahead and send that message. If you have an interactive demo and a video in that email, the CFO or the controller that we sell to, our financial customers out there, are probably drinking a cup of joe on Saturday morning and looking at your content, ironically. So study how your buyers are engaging in your content to get smarter about how you strategize your content and produce it. And then finally, who doesn't want to be a hero? Find out who those sellers are using the analytics. Find out who in your organizational structure you'll configure into the platform. Find out who your pre-sales experts are in terms of offering demos, and get their names out there. Shine their light bright, because success should be modeled. And by doing that, you'll be able to have that model replicated of success throughout your organization. And then lastly, as I wrap up before we go into Q&A here, here are really some of the themes that I just wanted to end with that I've talked throughout this organization pretty fast. So good thing that it's recorded. But these critical success factors, as we end here, if we just summarize them, going to the top, again, be very clear about what the objective is or what the problem is you're trying to solve. Again, if you want to be that 16% that succeed in digital transformation efforts out there, you need to know what it is you're going after. For us, that was scale. Be very intentional in knowing that what you're implementing is change, and you have to be very proactive to create plans around how to get through that process very carefully. You just can't create an interactive demo and shove it down your sales reps and your solutions consultants' throats. Go through a process and a plan around that. Organize your subject matter expertise with your pre-sales organization and find out what should be left for a face-to-face conversation, a virtual conversation, or a digital conversation, and wrap some framework like consensus offers in that content we talked about in that first phase that we learned about. And then go ahead and determine where you can get those digital production skills for pre-sales. Is it going to be external or internal? Moving forward, identify your intelligent demo automation solution. We've looked at a lot out there and we've landed on consensus. Interesting note, it took us about 3 years with one solution to get to about 2,500 messages. The next solution we looked at took us about 1.25 years to get to that. And in just 6 months, it took us just 6 months to get to 2,500 demos within that time frame. And so we're accelerating in this phase 4 that we're in, our base, if you will, and leaning into consensus as an intelligent demo automation solution. And then enable your sales and pre-sales team. Leverage cross-functional partners like your sales trainers to help you deliver this solution and the best practices around where it should be used throughout the sales funnel. And finally, analyze and share success. Build out your champions, your heroes, and communicate that broadly, which will help accelerate the adoption of this overall change that you are delivering. So without further ado, Miles, I'm going to go ahead and stop there and see if there are any questions that folks would like to ask out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Brian. That was really great. We've got a few questions coming in here, so let's get started. David has asked, do you think there's any linkage between implementing your digital transformation project and building a pre-sales center of excellence? Is there any overlap? He says his hypothesis is that you develop a center of excellence by delivering multiple digital transformation projects in specific areas, like building processes that are fully data-driven. He'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think they're absolutely 100% linked. And that's, I'd say, kind of my point. I think you said it much better, David, than I, but building that center of excellence takes time, and you have to start somewhere. It's not going to be excellent from the beginning. And so knowing what that end game is in terms of that center of excellence that you're building out can help you in terms of a strategy using techniques like digital transformation and some of the wisdom that we have out in the industry to dissect and how to build out that center of excellence that is the process, the people and the technology that you want to implement. And so I do think 100% they are linked.
Okay, next one. What does the typical sales process look like now with interactive demos? Do your prospects just go off to your site and go through a survey to choose their own adventure?
It's a great question. So no, that is one option that Consensus offers. We instead put this in the hands of our sales reps and our solutions consultants. And so solutions consultants will suggest in a deal strategy which assets might be best used, but our solutions consultants are again constrained. And so our sellers out there know which, because the way we've tagged them and named them in our solution, which interactive demo is going to be used for what part of the sales funnel. And so our sellers go into Consensus, create a demo board, and then choose from a list of interactive demos we've targeted for the segment that they sell within. That's how we're using it right now. And in 6 months, I think we've delivered about 1,500 demos with buyers actually engaging in it. And so that process has been very effective for us.
Okay. Okay, we have a question from Brady. Can you provide some idea of the time it took from concept to initial rollout of your first batch of pre-sales materials? And how long did it take to get your content from first release to fairly well polished and built out?
So if I go back to the phase one, our pilot there, where we produced just 5 videos to really pilot them out, because we're taking that, that center of excellence concept and starting small, we decided with just 5 videos out of our overall story that we told, those were the hardest to tell and could really accelerate and reinforce what we're trying to do. So working with an external vendor, it took us about 2 to 3 months over the phone to partner with them to learn how to go through that pre-production stage. And so pre-production was done over the phone. And then we spent about 2 or 3 days at that vendor who was training us on the next step, which is the production stage. We had some on-screen talent, and they had a studio that we could record in. That took about 2 to 3 days to actually go through that production stage. And then we went through post-production and started leveraging that in a sales solution, not Consensus. We had another one at the time we were testing out. And so to answer your question, it's about 2 or 3 months to go through that process with 5 video assets.
Right on. So we've had a lot of questions coming in regarding rolling it out and getting adoption from the sales organization, but we have this one here from Doug. He says, we're in the infancy stage of adopting Consensus. We have a very senior sales team who are very set in their process, which includes the use of an SE for every call, albeit a standard demo, all the way to a very technical strategy call. Any additional tips to help drive adoption from the sales organization?
Yeah, we're there as well. We have within the segment that I sell in, we go after small to medium businesses, and so we have the small business team, a mid-market team, and then we have a nationals team. And the reason why I shared that digital selling motion model with you is you have face-to-face, virtual, and digital, is that you have to work with your very seasoned and senior sales reps who don't like to change. As I talked about change management, there are a lot of the saboteurs and the fence sitters, is to really work with the sales leadership team. They're going to be the ones that help drive change for the sellers out there. And so I partnered with a VP of sales in this segment I was working on for quite a while and helped him see value. I helped him deliver some messages internally through video, and taking ways to, rather than have a team meeting for an hour, I helped our vice president create a video for 3 minutes or 5 minutes and deliver that out to the 200-person organization he is responsible for. So I started to teach him through examples of helping him communicate in a digital way internally, how there was great scale and benefit to him. And that's when he started to work with our senior sales executives and sales leaders to drive that awareness, to drive that understanding, finally getting to belief. And if you're selling in an enterprise or a seasoned model or a small business, I shared with me out there, I may have 30 individuals in 30 separate deals if I'm running a strategic volume type of sale. But if I'm an enterprise type of complicated seller, I have one account, but I still have 30 people to reach in my political map. And so when you use this type of language and you help them understand that this is going to drive engagement into that really complicated political map in a large organization where most of your senior sellers are, you will start to see them get through that change management process. One of my favorite stories, and I'll end on this one for other questions, is one of our very senior sales reps said, Brian, I'm not using video. It hell is going to have to freeze over before I start using the solution. I'm good. I deliver quota, and she did. She's amazing. But I'll tell you that hell has frozen over if you go and check, because last year she reached out and said, all right, I get it. Everybody around me is using this, and I'm seeing it accelerate their deals. It helps out with conversions. It drives deeper engagement in that funnel. It actually delivers on those promises. And so I want you to train me so I can use this. And she started using it. So I'm happy to announce hell has frozen over with senior sales reps in my example. Other questions?
Right on. Okay, we have a question here from Steve, kind of going along with that. So do the reps still conduct live demos? Do they conduct less demos per sale now?
Both. So in our enterprise, more of our field sales organization until the pandemic, they were still delivering a lot of software demonstrations, sales and the solutions consultants out in the field. And they started to get more familiar with virtual. And so they got comfortable with, instead of flying out and taking a day or two to do that, virtual selling was helping them get some productivity. They could go after more deals out there. And then digital has allowed them to create even greater scale. And so we absolutely have in some deals where we're not using a digital strategy to eliminate the demo. In those larger complicated deals, we're using it to augment the story. Digital touches throughout that sales funnel with the appropriate level of content so that you can almost flip the demo or the conversation. Because after, again, if we're using it pre-discovery and I give them a set of videos and they then tell me what's important to them, that's going to help you drive a much deeper conversation around the value that you know is important to that buyer right from the get-go. Prior to a demo, if I deliver an interactive demo, you're going to know exactly in the political map that shows up on your deal what conversations you should have. So really flipping that conversation. It's not starting from beginning based on what you learned from discovery, but having the software tell you how you should prioritize your demo flow. So there are cases where the demo eliminates the need to have a solutions consultant go out field to field or have a virtual conversation. But in a lot of cases, we're using it to augment that conversation.
Okay, we'll take a couple more here. With the content capacity that you now have, how much time is allocated towards updating it?
So right now we have, we started with 2 resources last year, and we now have 4 dedicated solutions consultants that we have pulled into my progressive selling motion team that focuses on digital pre-sales. And so we have 4 full-time resources partnered with solutions consultants that are out there field to field and virtually.
Okay, okay, one more here. Do you have multiple languages in your library? Any thoughts on how to manage that successfully?
We do, and I would say that is something we're continuing to learn about. So we have French, and I've talked to a lot of our Latin America teams where we're really pioneering that. There are different ways to localize your content, and so that really is a great question. If you have that need, have that built into your content strategy, because how you produce your assets can really help you localize faster. And so, for example, if you have no video talent on there and you just have some screen flows and some pictures that you've put into a video, I can take that story and I can tell it in English and French and Spanish by just having a voiceover go and localize that content. If you have video talent, then your option is probably to use captioned services. And that's maybe an opportunity for Consensus. I think they know that, where they don't have caption services in their player. And so, yes, we do have some. We haven't had a lot of success with it because we're still kind of learning how to implement that in some of our global markets. If you consider Canadian a different language, then we've got a lot of that.
Excellent.
Process.
Excellent. Well, appreciate it, Brian. Thank you for another awesome session. If anyone wants to connect with you or ask questions, is there a way anyone can connected
I'm
with?
out on LinkedIn. I love collaborating and networking and learning from your best practices and experiences out in the industry. So please don't hesitate. I'd be happy to reach out and dialogue and a conversation around digital pre-sales with you.
Well, thanks again to Brian for a great presentation. Little note here of housekeeping. Just a reminder, if you want to view this presentation, join that LinkedIn group that has been, the link to join it is in the chat. And then for the rest of, for the next couple hours, we have 2 tracks. We have The Future of Sales Engineering Pre-Sales, A World Without Demos, hosted by Don Carmichael. And then Demo Automation Strategies with Garen. He's the founder and CEO of Consensus. If you do not have the link to enter these 2 sessions, you can go to demofest2020.com and enter from there. But I encourage you to check out one of these 2 and have a great DEMOFEST. Thank you.
Thanks, Miles. Ciao.
Thanks, Brian.